Haliburton's got the ball. Haliburton rises up. And there's a whistle. Oh, my goodness. Tyrese Haliburton hits a three and is fouled.
You have got to be kidding me.
McConnell underneath the basket. Looking. Toppin in the corner for three.
Oh, yeah! Yeah! OB!
Pacers have it, a chance to tie.
Yeah, Nembhard
Hits the three. Nembhard gives Indiana the lead.
Hello and welcome back to the Pacers Fever Show, your home for all things blue and gold. The Indiana Pacers pulled off an absolute stunner in Cleveland in Game 2 of this series, a game the Cavs should have had in the bag. All they had to do was not choke it away, and yet that's exactly what they did. Tyrese Haliburton, AA, Aaron Nesmith, and Myles Turner led the Pacers in the fourth quarter, storming back late and silencing the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse with a dramatic finish that left the Cavs reeling. Now the Pacers ride into Game 3 with a commanding 2-0 lead, and they're bringing the show back to Gainbridge Fieldhouse with a chance to put the Cavs in dire straits. The question now, though, is can the Pacers keep their foot on the gas, or will the Cavs finally show some signs of life? We've got the full preview coming up, key matchups, adjustments to watch, and what Indiana needs to do to stay in control and take that commanding 3-0 lead. You're not going to want to miss this one, so let's get into it. The number 1 seed, Cleveland Cavaliers versus the number 4 seed, Indiana Pacers. Game 3 will be Friday, May 9th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. The Pacers will host that at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Game 4 will be on Sunday, May 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on TNT. Should a Game 5 be needed, Pacers at Cavs, Tuesday, May 13th, time to be determined on TNT. Game 6 would be Cavs at Pacers, Thursday, May 15th, time to be determined on ESPN. And then Game 7, Pacers at Cavs, if necessary, Sunday, May 18th, time and network to be determined. I'm still trying to recover from the Game 2 shenanigans that happened in that fourth quarter. The Pacers trailed by 7 points with under 40 seconds left. And for the second time in a week, they come back from that same deficit in that same time, and they steal a game that should have easily been won. The Bucks in that first round series, and then yesterday, I'm recording this on Wednesday. They took it back from the Cavs, and I mean it was an incredible game and performance by the Pacers in the fourth quarter. I would say the incredible game. It took place starting after the fourth quarter because the Pacers just were not very good for 3 quarters of this game, probably even more than that. We jumped on here right after the game to kind of give a live reaction and a recap. I was still delusional because it was 11 o'clock at night almost when I was recording that. It was right after the Pacers had won. The heart rate is through the roof. I'm, texting back and forth with people that were watching the game, trying to just wrap my head around how the Pacers keep doing this. And not that I'm a huge fan of them putting themselves in these situations, but the Pacers seem to have some kind of magical sauce when it comes to these late game dramatics, and the basketball gods are smiling down on them right now and have been over the last couple of months. There's been multiple finishes like this where the win probability was at a 99.9%, and the Pacers somehow pulled this off. The Pacers at one point on ESPN, I think it was 98-81. They had like the Cavs had like a 99.8% chance of winning that game. And then again, in the last about 50 seconds of the game, the Cavs had that 99.9% chance to win, and the Pacers pull it off. And I mean, some of it's luck, obviously, but they have this way about being able to do this and do it consistently, where they start to get into these moments and they really start to thrive. I mean, I really feel like the Pacers believe that the game is not over until that buzzer hits 0 and 48 minutes has passed, or whatever it is in overtime. So, I mean, just the ability to stay in this game a game that, honestly, the Cavs came in. It sounded like, it sounded like you could drop a pin needle at the beginning of the game and you could hear it drop and you could hear that noise because the Pacers start out on a 9-4 run. The Cavs, had just gotten word that 3 of their best players were going to miss this game. There was obviously always the possibility that Darius Garland was going to miss this game, but Evan Mobley and DeAndre Hunter being added to that injury report and then not playing in game 2, you could just feel the life taken out of that arena. And I felt like they didn't start to get it back, that life, until Donovan Mitchell just started to go off in that first half. And it took a little bit for that to build. Even when he was doing all of these things and scoring all of these points, it still felt like they knew something was inevitable, a defeat. They were worried because it wasn't really reported until the game, but Donovan Mitchell's been dealing with a calf strain. So I think they were a little hesitant because, here they are, this team, right, that had a 64-win season. An incredible start, a historic start for that franchise. A historic run right around January or February, I think it was, where they went on another run of unbeaten. So this team had been coming off a high, right? They've pretty much cruised through the last 2 months of the season. And in the NBA, that can be very tough, right? That's tough for the players because you get into some bad habits. I was listening to Brian Windhorst's podcast, Hoops Collective, today, and he was really good to point out the fact that even in cruising the last 2 months, even when you're cruising as a good team in the NBA for months or weeks, while you do obviously get good habits from winning and understanding how to win and beat teams no matter who they are, you do pick up some bad habits. And bad habits can, it can be as small as taking your foot off the gas in third or fourth, not coming out after halftime and making adjustments, not going into games having made adjustments. You just kind of run with the same game plans because it's just working, right? The ability for you to play at an intense level for the whole season. The Cavs are playing games to end the season where they're not fighting for positioning, right? Some would say, yeah, they were still fighting for that home court advantage should they and the Thunder meet up in the NBA Finals. But I didn't feel like it was a point of emphasis necessarily. If they were going to get it, they were going to get it just by how well they were playing. It wasn't going to be a focus as to let's wear our guys down and play them 82 straight games. So that wasn't really a thought, I think, that entered the Cavs' mind. They just thought, if they get close enough, then they can kind of assess where they are. And health-wise, if guys needed some breaks, they were going to give it to them. But it never got to that point. It never got to where I felt the Cavs were trying to chase down the Thunder. And they didn't catch them, obviously. But I think it does impact you. If you've played the game at all, at any level, high school, college, small college, intramural, when you are beating teams and beating them handedly, and then all of a sudden you get thrown intense opponent or challenge, something intense happens, an obstacle comes your way. It's a little bit harder to deal with that because you've not really faced adversity all season. In their season, they had kind of a slower March and April, but they only lost I think it was 10 games maybe in that stretch. So not 10 games, 6 games, I think it was. It wasn't even, but 10 games over, I think it was like the last, after the All-Star break was when they started to lose a lot more. But they figured out ways to continue to win at a high clip without facing any kind of challenges. They were relatively healthy the whole season. You've got the dings and knocks throughout the year from playing 82 games, but Evan Mobley played the whole season, and people had kind of criticized. And I was listening to a Cavs podcast, and I didn't know this much about the Cavs, right? You just kind of you go into a series when you're going to preview them or play them. Like right now, I didn't watch a ton of Cavs games, but when I knew that was coming, I started to do my research on the Cavs and dig into the underlying numbers and dig into the games played by these Cavalier players to try to understand how can the Pacers play against them and defend against them, and what kind of success or what kind of challenges is this series going to present. And I felt like the Pacers on paper really matched up well. But the Cavs, I mean, they are so deep and they had such great seasons. I mean, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, all-star level players, right? Defensive Player of the Year and Evan Mobley, arguably two of the best six men in the league during the regular season. Ty Jerome and DeAndre Hunter when he joined from the Hawks. And I thought that move was just what could take them to the mountaintop. I thought getting DeAndre Hunter, because I'd seen him play with the Hawks quite a bit. He was on my fantasy team. That's why I was watching a lot of Hawks games. But he felt like the missing piece. I mean, depth is such a huge thing in the NBA, and you're seeing it in all of these series, right? So right now, actually, OKC's playing Denver in game 2, and it is all OKC. I think, at this point, they're almost up 30. They're up 28 before halftime. There's 6 minutes left in the second quarter. OKC's just blowing the doors off the Nuggets. But the Nuggets only needed to go get one game there. But the reason why I was talking about, the Nuggets, the Thunder, the Nuggets don't really have that much depth, right? I mean, off the bench, Russell Westbrook. I mean, they're playing DeAndre Jordan in this game, which is crazy. But I mean, Russell Westbrook, great player, but I mean, that's really it. There's not really much coming off of this Denver bench. Whereas OKC, I mean, Isaiah Joe, right? I mean, Hartenstein, Caruso, just guys that the other Jalen Williams, who just dunked it. They just got guys, right? The Eastern Conference, you look at the Celtics and Hauser and them. They're a good Pritchard. Those are good bench players, good rotation players. Depending on the matchups, Al Horford or Kristaps Porzingis. Usually Horford if Porzingis is in. So the Celtics have good depth. The Knicks don't have good depth. But the Cavs, I thought, looking at their roster on paper, I thought the Cavs had one of the, if not the deepest teams in the NBA. The Pacers are right up there with them. But I thought that the Cavs did a nice job of getting high quality bench players to go along with players that were finally taking those steps that we all thought they might, in Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, even Jared Allen has been a lot better this season than in most seasons. Kenny Atkinson unlocked their team defense, one of the best defensive teams in the league in the regular season. But I thought going into this series, the Pacers were really going to struggle. But right before game 2, all of that goes to waste. And we talk about how the regular season doesn't really mean much, especially now because of the tax aprons. I feel like teams are more on even playing ground. And tonight will be the first time that a team has won on the road in this second round. I think it's up to I think it was 6-0. Away teams had started 6-0 in these second round series. But tonight, the Thunder look like they're gonna break that, snap that. But every road team won games. The Pacers up 2-0. The Knicks up 2-0. The Warriors up 1-0. And then you have Denver, who was up 1-0. And, these teams are a lot more even. I feel like the playing field is better across the board because of the tax apron. You don't have these mega teams, but you do have teams that have focused on building good teams with great starting rotations, and then building out your bench and getting guys that fit their systems, right? So if I'm talking about who I think some of the best teams are in the league, obviously OKC. I think with more experience, they're going to become very, very scary to want to play just because the home crowd, they have tremendous depth. I think that if they get past the Nuggets, they'll be a very challenging team to try to handle. And I don't think if Golden State gets out of that series somehow with Steph Curry hurt, I just think that OKC is just going to run right through them into the Western or into the finals. So if Denver doesn't take care of OKC, because Denver's got like that championship caliber experience and veterans and guys that have been there before. Whereas, I mean, it's a matchup between guys that have never really been there and battle tested versus guys that have been battle tested. That's basically what this series is. So that's why I think it has the chance, I think, to go like 6 games. But the reason why I just keep talking about other teams with depth is I feel like you've got to have that to be successful, because should injuries occur, you can usually counter that blow at least somewhat. Unfortunately for the Cavaliers, and really unfortunate for basketball, because I felt like this series could have been one of the best series in the NBA playoffs this year. The Cavs lose 3 of their best players, 2 All-Stars and a 6-man of the year candidate. So they come in, backs against the wall. It's very quiet, but the Pacers just never really capitalized on the Cavs being so wrapped up in who they were missing, what it meant for the rest of the series. If you're a Cavs player or anybody in that organization or the fans around that organization, I mean, just imagine this, Pacer fans. Like, this would be similar to if we lost Tyrese Haliburton, Pascal Siakam, and then an Obi Toppin or Benedict Mathurin, and all 3 of them were out. You wouldn't feel good about our chances. I mean, you could say that we could be competitive at home at Gainbridge with those guys out, but we would be fooling ourselves if we thought that they could pull off a win against a team that's at full strength. So if the Cavs were at full strength, trying to stop them, especially being the lesser of the teams according to the seeds and the records from the regular season. All of that long-winded to say the Cavs came in ready for the Pacers to put them down, I think. And they're always going to be competitive, right? Basketball players are not just going to give in. Donovan Mitchell would not have just given in to these Pacers. But I think if the Pacers came out on a 16-4 run or win the first quarter by 20 points or 15 points, I think we're having a whole different conversation of the Cavs just gave in, because, I mean, what are they supposed to do, right? They're down 3 players. Their superstar player is running around on a really bad calf muscle, it seems, right now. So they just look all out of sorts. And they were horrible shooting the basketball in the first game. Come out, shoot the ball pretty well early on in the game, but end up shooting right around the same percentage that they shot in game 1. And again, we talked about this multiple times. Even if you're a good shooting 3-point team, you have to know that you could die by the 3. And go ask the Celtics. The Celtics just went down to a 2-0 deficit, going away from home, going to Madison Square Garden to play the Knicks, and that place will be electric. It's going to be tough to shoot on the road for them. It's going to be tough for these Cavs to shoot on the road against the Pacers, especially at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, especially when the Pacers are playing at a top 10 level defense in the league. So I think if you're a Cavs fan, you would have just felt like, come on, just end it. Like, let's get this over with. But the Cavs players, kudos to them. NBA players, competitive guys, don't want to give in. I got a lot of respect for them. I do. I respect every single one of their guys. They all play the right way. They all play hard, right? And that's what I consider the right way. If you play basketball the hard way, like if you are giving your all 100%, that's all I care about, right? Talent, yeah. Is it gonna be there? Is it gonna go away? Are some players just not as talented? Do you get frustrated with people at times? Yes. But if you're giving your 100% all, you're just not getting it done. I'll respect you. I might not care for you much as a player, but I will respect everything that you provide. And that's what I love about this Pacer team. They're all going 100%, 100% of the time, it seems. They're nice guys. They're humble. They're hungry. They love to play together. They're a great team. It's a team effort. I just feel like the Pacers do it the right way and have built it the right way. The Cavs do it the right way, built it the right way. OKC, same thing, built it the right way. I mean, really all these teams that are left, they've built their teams the right way That's why they're still here in the playoffs, obviously. But I think they built it the right way where they've just got guys that compete, right? There's some competitors left in this playoffs, and the Cavs have a lot of those guys. That being said, there is a lot of questions coming from Cavs faithful about their toughness. And I don't really want to question anybody's toughness. Like you're asking somebody to play through an injury. That's really tough to do to somebody because that can be their career. That could be the end of their time in the NBA if they do something to hurt themselves even further. You had Stephen A. Smith and them challenging Darius Garland. Like if your toe's not falling off, you should have been out there. They were saying anything about Evan Mobley. If you can walk around on the sideline, you're good enough to play. I don't necessarily agree with that because that is really tough to ask somebody to play through injury. It's just unfortunate. Injuries happen. It happened to everybody. I mean, yeah, back in the 90s, they probably would have played. But also back in the 90s, they didn't really care about their bodies like they do today, right? Like guys are going to look out for their bodies more so, which they should. Everybody should. Like I'm not going to go out there and risk my own health to and you know, they do get paid a lot and people always say, well, they get paid a lot, they should do it. But at the end of the day, this is somebody's livelihood, this is somebody's life, right? It's the same thing with like Dame, like the whole blood clot thing that kind of bugged me just because this is the guy's life. And while yes, he might have decided it was a good idea to go back, who knows what impact that had on the injury that he got? Who knows what impact that has going forward? I'm always about take care of yourself, right? And the work will come later. This is work to them. As much as fun and games and they're playing a game, it is work, right? It's their livelihood and how they go forward in life and how they feed their families and give their families generational wealth because a lot of these families that some of these guys are coming from don't have the luxury of money and resources. And some of these guys, they are the money and resources for their families and extended families. So whenever they say go out there and play, like these are the studio heads that are making millions of dollars to sit on TV and just bark at the TV. Of course, they're going to say get out there and play. But at the end of the day, if we were, you know, they were having problems with their vocal cords and the producer comes in and goes, just get out there and talk. And then you blow out a vocal cord, same kind of thing. You then lose your ability to do your job. So I hate that. I hate when people will go, well, you should just play. You don't know what they're going through. And if they're hurt somewhere else, or if they're hurt somewhere, that could hurt something else further down the road. So if these guys aren't healthy, they know their bodies, and those are medical people making those decisions for them. It's not usually the player, because I guarantee you all three of those players wanted to play yesterday, but they just couldn't. I mean, this is a really good team. They barely lose. And you're talking about how three players just don't want to play. That's just not right. So anyway, off my soapbox, into the game 3 preview. But first, we'll talk a little bit about game 2. Again, like I said, I'm still reeling from that. Since 2005, teams carrying a 7-point lead in the final 48 seconds of the fourth quarter or overtime of a postseason game had, entering Tuesday night, had a combined record of 1,679 and 2. So if you led by 7 points in the final 48 seconds, your team won 0.999% of the time. So 99.9% of the time. Like I said, in the postseason game since 2005, those teams that have had that lead have gone 1,679 and 2. They've lost 2 games in total. Not only did the Pacers make it 1,679 and 3, they are the 2 victories, the most recent victories. So those 3 teams that lost were because of the Pacers. 2 of them were because of the Pacers. So the Pacers have defied all odds in the wins that they've had in the last week with that 7-point deficit heading into the last 48 seconds of the game. Only 3 teams have ever won when trailing by 7 points in that last 48 seconds. That's, you can't make that up. I don't think you could write a better story. I mean, it's funny because I don't know if how many people notice this, or remember this, but Tyrese Haliburton is actually part of the new documentary series or docuseries for Netflix. I think they had one already this year, but this year they're or this last year, but this season they follow around. I forget what I think it's called, Starting Five or something like that. But they follow around 5 NBA players, and Tyrese Haliburton is featured in that Netflix docuseries. So this game and the Milwaukee game and this postseason run are going to be on that Netflix show with Tyrese Haliburton, because the Netflix cameras have been following him around. If you look at social medias, you'll see like a very nondescript cameraman, just kind of camera people following him around with a mic. He's doing the Netflix series. So we're going to get to see this again, and then get like the behind the scenes and like what's going on in the Pacers locker room and with Ty and him at home and him talking about this in the hotels. And I can't wait. It's going to be electric. I am looking forward to it. And that was the Setting the Pace guys that reminded me, because they were talking about it on their show, Alex and Facci. And I'm so excited. Like, Alex keeps tweeting about it. I'm like, when is it coming out? So I think it's in June or July when they drop it, but I'm excited. So I hope the Pacers season ends well, so that way I'm happy when I'm watching it. But basketball gods. So we heard a lot about this today as I was listening to all sorts of podcasts, right? And I don't know if I believe in the basketball gods, but it does feel like the Pacers' karma has finally, karma had always kind of owned the Pacers. And in karma, I mean, it's just unfortunate injuries have always happened with these Pacers, and bad things have always happened. And LeBron James has always been sitting at the end of Eastern Conference final runs. The Knicks have always been a thorn to the Pacers, and the Bulls and Michael own that time period in which Reggie was really at his prime. So the Pacers have always had these hurdles. I mean, the Celtics back in the day as well, the Pistons, the Lakers, like the time the Pacers finally get to the finals and they have to meet up with Kobe and Shaq, like it just and I know you're always going to play the best teams out there, and you got to go through the best teams to win championships. You got to have the best players to win championships. The Pacers have had always, the second best player, third best player. They've never had the best player. But I mean, Tyrese Haliburton is starting to make a point where he might not look like he affects the game in a best player kind of way, in a superstar level kind of way. But this 25-year-old point guard, very young point guard, has made some of the biggest shots. A fun stat, this year, in the final 2 minutes to either win or tie the game, Tyrese Haliburton is 10 of 11 when shooting that shot to either tie the game or win the game in the final 2 minutes, which is like you I think you take it for granted just how important he is to take those last minute shots and hit those shots, and has done it now 3 times in the playoffs. Last year with the Bucks with that floater, this year with the Bucks against Giannis, this year against Ty Jerome in this last game. The guy has Reggie qualities, and I got to see Reggie play at the end of his career. I did not and was not alive for the sorry, I had to sneeze and take that, and I'll edit that out. But I was not alive for the 8 points, 9 seconds with Reggie against the Knicks in the Garden. I wasn't alive for that. But I mean, I've watched the documentary on that. I've watched highlights of that. I grew up with that with my dad and my grandpa, always watching, old Pacer games. The old Pacer games would come on, and I'd watch those because it was always played on this day, like on the old ESPN2 or ESPN News. Like what they used to have, like an ESPN like history thing. I always forget what it was. The ESPN. Right? Am I crazy? Like, I always felt like they played classic games on it. But anyway, I've seen that game in its totality. I've seen the end of that game, obviously, on many highlights. I mean, when you're a Pacers fan, like, that's what you're born with. Like, you're born with Boom Baby, and you're born with Reggie Miller. And Ding Dong, the Wicked Witch is dead. One of the best Mark Boyle lines ever. So I think, Tyrese has really cemented his legacy already as one of the most clutch playoff performing point guards that there's been, which is crazy because he's only been in the playoffs for 2 years. But I mean, it is hard. You'd be hard pressed to try to find somebody as clutch as him in the postseason in the history of the NBA, especially at such a young age. And he's already done it 3 times where he's just taking over at the end of games and taking that last shot. And he's not a shot first point guard, or shoot first point guard. He is a pass first point guard. The fact that he wants the ball, needs the ball in these moments says so much about who he is as a player. And I think those that have said and will continue to say that he is overrated, that they don't get the hype around him, if you just watch the Pacers and you watch what they do to dismantle some of these teams, and I know they've run into teams that have had injury issues in the postseason, but you can only play the team in front of you. Go and look at the Boston series where they get swept and look how much the Celtics were backpedaling at times, especially in that game 1 last year. The Pacers controlled that game for, I would say, 95 to 98% of that game. It was all Pacers. It wasn't until they make the mistake at the end of the game, turn the ball over to let the Cavs back into it, and then the Cavs end up winning it like a great team would, or a championship team would. But that was his first year. I mean, Tyrese Haliburton and was playing on a bum hamstring. I mean, that hamstring it gave out eventually, but it was ready to just give out. And it finally did. I mean, he finally had to completely stop playing for the rest of the playoffs. So the Pacers had, when people are like, well, Pacers haven't really ever had to deal with their own. Well, Tyrese Haliburton, if he's healthy for that Boston series, I felt like they could have made it a competitive series of 6 to 7 games. I really did feel that way. They were playing that well. So, and you look at each of those games, they were in each of those games and led in each of those games. I think people underestimate and here's some kudos to you, Pacer fans and other fans. If you're listening to this, I don't mean this as any kind of slight or that Pacer fans are better than others. I mean, personally, like, I love my Pacer fans, but like, I'm not trying to say this to sound obnoxious, but I think the Pacers fan base, there is such a high IQ, a basketball IQ, a high basketball IQ for the Pacers fans. They live and breathe basketball. Like, that's what they are. That's what Hoosiers are. So I think they understand way more about what Tyrese Haliburton can do for a team and against a team to cause these issues, to present these challenges to some of the best in the league. So if you go back and look at their performances against some of the best teams this season, they've been really good against some of the best in these in the NBA. So I can't stand the conversation, but I know they'll keep happening, and it does me no good to keep arguing about it. But Tyrese Haliburton is him. He is who he is, and he is going to torture your team, and you're not going to like it. They didn't like Reggie. They hated Reggie. They thought Reggie was overrated. He never won a championship. That's all you ever hear. But yeah, he didn't win a championship because Michael's sitting there, because Kobe's sitting there. The Pistons are sitting there. Like, they always had that challenge of playing against these elite teams or these freakishly good basketball players who are some of the best in the history of the NBA. The Pacers have always had to run into them. LeBron. Like, the Pacers didn't win championships because they've always seemed to have to run into said superstar and have been eliminated by them. So I think a championship's coming. I don't want to get too hard ahead of ourselves, right? Talking about this season. But I mean, this is the first time that I can remember, even against like the Heat back in 2013, 2014, I think it was. Could have been 2012, 2013, but whatever. Whenever it was 2013, 2014, I think. And then having to go up against LeBron James, I felt like we could possibly beat them, but who knew, right? Then you got to play a Greg Popovich Spurs team, right? Or I think it was the Mavericks. Yeah, the Mavs one season. And those were really good teams, like Dirk's team. So I don't think the Pacers would have won necessarily those because they would have been the away team. They would have started both of those on the road. I don't think they would have won those series, but they've been so close, right? They've been at the doorstep. They've been looking in, but they can never break through. The one year that they do, they play against Kobe and Shaq, and they discard the Pacers. This year does feel different. I believe they are playing the best basketball of the four that are left in the Eastern Conference. If you watch the Knicks and Celtics in this series so far, they've been kind of underwhelming, both of them. And then the Knicks had a very difficult time against the Pistons, and the Pistons are a little bit more of a physical, defensive-minded team, but I feel like the Pacers are like the older version of them. So I feel good about them if the Pacers do advance out of this series. The series is not over, but I do feel good about where the Pacers are currently. And that starts with Tyrese Haliburton. That starts with what he did in game 2, and that being not the norm, obviously, of coming back and winning those games in desperation, but playing at a high level, doing what you need to do to just win games. If you do the math, the Pacers have to win, so 4 games in the Eastern Conference Finals, 4 games in the finals, and then 2 more here in this series. The Pacers only need to win 8 more games and not let the other teams, obviously, win the 8 games, but it'd be more than that with the Cavs now because the Cavs have to win 4, and then the team would have to beat them, so 16, I guess, 12 wins, but the Pacers only need 8. So it's looking good. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. One game at a time, one day at a time. But like the outlook, this team is legit. Like this team is what we thought they were. They were one of the best teams after the All-Star break and in the new calendar year. They're up there with OKC. They're up there with Boston. Right? So they are one of the best teams in the NBA, and it's showing. And I think people are shocked by it because they don't understand who they are or what they are or what their identity is or who their superstar is. And they can't fathom what Tyrese Haliburton is because he's not like the flashy scorer. He's not somebody that's going to bust you up for 30 points. He's not going to do these crazy dunks flying down the lane. He's not going to hit 16 3-pointers. Like, he's just not that guy. He is the engine that makes this team go. He is what basically a Chris Paul was, right? A better version of Tony Parker. He is John Stockton. He's got the ability of Reggie Miller. Like, the dude is just a mixture of legendary players. And that's just how good he is. Like, it's okay to say that. Like, he is that good. He has proven he is one of the top players in this league. One last thing as far as game 2, just kind of talking about the summary. So Haliburton, again, he had 19 points in last night's game. He had 11 points in that fourth quarter. He really came alive in that fourth quarter, 11 points. He had 5 rebounds in that fourth quarter. So not only was he involved in the offense, he had a huge block that I feel saved the game. So he had a huge block. He gets his own rebound off of a free throw. He scores 11 points. He's a plus 15 in that quarter. He plays 12 minutes. He shoots 57% from the field. He hits that 1-3 at the end of the game. He did miss a free throw, but that ultimately led to that 3-pointer. And he doesn't typically miss free throws. He's a very high percentage free throw shooter. So he did everything in his power to win that game last night. You could also say the same for Benedict Mathurin and Aaron Nesmith. I thought they were excellent in that fourth quarter. And Miles Turner kept him in the game throughout the game. I mean, without Miles, we're not really in this game at the end. But I felt like Turner had an excellent game. Andrew Nembhard, great fourth quarter, but was probably the worst he's ever been in a postseason game the other 3 quarters. He had 8 turnovers in the game. He had 6 turnovers. He ended up having 2 turnovers in the fourth. He couldn't hold on to the basketball. Like, when he would dribble, he was dribbling all over the place and wild with it. And we'll talk about why I think that was and actually what I think the Cavs need to do again to be successful and steal a game in Indy or two. But I mean, you look up and down this lineup, right? Rick went with 6 guys, the 6 guys that he trusts the most that were playing very well. And he rode those guys the whole way down until the end of the game and ended up winning a game that I don't think anybody thought the Pacers had a chance, including myself. I was getting ready to give up on them. But Aaron Nesmith, I mean, he's always in the right place, the right time, making the best plays, getting those big turnovers, getting the offensive fouls, charging this team up. Like, he is the heartbeat to this team, he and Tyrese. And I think Aaron doesn't get enough respect. We always talk about Nemhard because he's Nemhell. He puts guys in an absolute bind offensively because he's so good defensively. But, I mean, Aaron Nesmith is that guard that we've always wanted, that wing player we've always wanted, who is a 3 and D and just gritty and mean and fearless. The guy has no fear of anything. Like, the fact that he went flying in on that rebound to get that rebound off of Pascal's second missed free throw was just a disregard for safety, his own safety, his own health. Like, the guy was gonna die. Like Tyrese said, he'll die for the game. He looked like he was ready to just put his body and soul on the line there. Went flying in, and Donovan Mitchell doesn't really give him much room to kind of land because he was trying to get to him. Like, oh no, I let him get an offensive rebound from the 3-point line off a free throw. This isn't good. Like, Donovan Mitchell looked asleep and, I mean, gassed and couldn't catch up with Aaron. About took Aaron out, and it was probably one of the top offensive rebounds I think I've ever seen in my life. Like, people compared it to Jordan. I guess Michael used to do some of that, where he just fearlessly go flying through the lane and just put one back. And I never got to really see it because I wasn't really around Mike's time. But I mean, Aaron Nesmith's ability, I'm not saying he's like Michael Jordan, but I'm saying his ability to fly at the rim, they say, is very similar in which Michael used to do. So, again, kudos to Aaron Smith. I wish you could give him the world at this point because he deserves it. And on a really cheap contract, the Pacers got a steal by dealing Malcolm Brogdon, who was just not a fit culturally with the Pacers, to get a person who embodies everything that the Pacers have ever been is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And Bleacher Report called him a paperclip. So take that and paperclip yourself. So, yeah. Game 2, I mean, just flat out just took it at the end of the game. Had no business winning that game. None. The Pacers didn't deserve it. They turned the ball over way too much in those first 2 games. Honestly, I thought game 1, they actually were a little bit better, but they ended up with the same amount of turnovers in those games, 17 for both game 1 and 2. Which is weird because Pacers are second in the league in assist to turnover ratio. They don't turn the ball over. Haliburton doesn't turn the ball over, which continues to be the trend. He does not turn the ball. He did not turn the ball over last night. And he ended up with 4 assists, which is actually a really low number for him. But I felt like they did a nice job of getting the Cavs, got Tyrese out of the game pretty well and pretty effectively defensively. I thought they did a really good job defending him, and that game plan to use Max Strus, to use Dean Wade, to kind of fly at him full court and pressure him full court. It caused Tyrese a lot of issues. He just couldn't get comfortable. And we've seen that happen in games with Ty. Like, we've seen where he can get uncomfortable at times because they take away the ability for him to go get the ball to start the offense. So he's getting the ball later in the shot clock. And the Pacers are just not as effective the later they get in the shot clock, as most teams aren't. They start to kind of panic. But Tyrese really, I mean, he's not physical enough to really break away sometimes from some of those defenders, but they're face guarding him. I mean, seriously, go back and look at the tape in the first quarter. They are face guarding him on the off ball at half court on the logo. And Dean Wade, I think it's Dean Wade or Strus, one of them, it might even be Merrill. One of them is standing, I mean, nose to nose with him. and won't let him move. So then you rely on a secondary ball handler, and that's where Andrew Nemhard got into trouble. So we'll talk about, some takeaways from game 2, where I think that's something the Cavs can take away. So let's jump into that right there. That's a good transition. Takeaways from game 2. Defense for the Cavs looked great. I think point of the attack issues that they had against the Pacers in game 1, where the Pacers were able to get to every spot that they wanted to on the court and at the pace in which the Pacers wanted to get to those spots on the court. I felt like that was a big difference from game 1 to game 2. The Cavs in game 2, Greg Anthony was great at pointing this out every time it happened. And at halftime, they were really focused on this, where you can see the defenders jump right to the ball and cut off any kind of ability to drive to the lane or drive to the paint. And the Pacers are most effective when they can kind of break you down and then start the ball movement, whether that be by screens or off screens, pick and rolls, and then pick and flares. I feel like the Cavs didn't really let the Pacers do much of anything off ball. They were all over the Pacers. And then whoever had the ball, they were all up on top of whoever had the ball. And when the ball was swung over to somebody else, immediately that defender met them with force. And I felt like the Cavs were really good in that. They did have, I think, the ability to play a little bit more physical, because I do feel at times when they do have Jared Allen and when they do have Evan Mobley out there, those aren't really guys that can kind of meet you at the point of attack, because they're not as quick side to side. So it's easier for somebody that's a little bit smaller, or a better ball handler. So for instance, Pascal is a difficult matchup, I think, for both Mobley and Jared Allen, because he can dribble and he can move around the perimeter. And those two are good defenders, but not good perimeter. I will say Jared Allen's very good at least staying with Tyrese side to side. The problem with him is that Tyrese is just too good. At some point he loses him because he's just too much going side to side, and Jared Allen kind of backs off of him like, oh, I don't know where you're going. And then that's when Tyrese is capitalized. But I thought for the most part, Jared Allen does a good job. I actually think Mobley is the one that it's a bigger issue for him staying with somebody defensively side to side. Like, he's just not, I think it's because he's kind of, he's got a big gait and he's awkward. He's kind of this like tree that kind of just blows in the wind. He looks like one of those things outside the car dealership. And he's a great, don't get me wrong, he's a good defender, I think, around the rim and in the paint. I think where he really struggles if somebody's smaller than him and quicker. And Pascal, I think, is quicker. So I think it's difficult for Mobley to consistently guard Pascal. And the issue that Myles creates is the fact that Myles will stretch, and Jared Allen and Mobley want to play in the paint, but Myles does not allow it because he's such a good three-point shooter that he drags you out to the three-point line, and that opens up the paint. And I think that's where the Pacers, honestly, seriously, I think it benefits the Pacers, and the Pacers were better against the lineups with Mobley and Allen because of the mismatch issues where they can't really switch as effectively, where I think the smaller lineups allow them to switch more effectively on these Pacers, and multiple people can give a shot at guarding Tyrese or Nemhard or Neesmith. So I think that's where the Cavs had the advantage. I mean, they looked good because Mobley and Allen weren't out there together. And I think they were a better defensive unit when those two weren't out there together. I think when Mobley does come back, I think it benefits them to have at least one of the bigs out there. But I actually think they're more effective when they go smaller against the Pacers. Pacers lacked intensity from the get-go. I mean, they did start out well. It was like 9-4, and they were hitting shots, and I was like, okay, they look focused. And all of a sudden, the Cavs got hot from three. The Pacers offense got stymied. They were not letting Haliburton get the ball. And then all of a sudden, the Pacers just go on this tear of turning the ball over, dribbling off their legs. I mean, it was awful. It was horrible to watch offensively. Like, it was like gouge your eyes out bad with how bad they looked offensively. And a lot of that, I think, I think this happened last year when we first acquired Pascal. There's sometimes in the games where, I mean, Pascal's been a great fit, but there's times in games where it feels like they don't really know what to do with Pascal. And I will admit, Pascal has not shot the ball as well over the last couple of months. So that was something I was really concerned about coming into the playoffs because he looked gassed. He looked tired from just how good he was carrying this team through half of the season when Haliburton wasn't going very good. I did worry about Pascal possibly being tired and that waning on him, and then the confidence level kind of shifting. And it kind of has. I mean, in the postseason last year, there were many times where he just took the ball down to the elbow, right at the free throw line, and just went to work and does that little spin move and just drains fading, 15 footers. But anymore, man, when he shoots it, I'm like, ooh, I don't know if that's going to go in. And a lot of times it just hasn't, it hasn't gone his way lately. And I worry he's tired. I worry that, there was a moment where he missed, and I don't know what happened, but I think it was just, it said personal issues, so you don't want to speculate too much, but I don't know what those were. I don't know if, something happened in the family or what, but it was right around that time I started to notice that he's really struggling too. So I don't know. Something's off. I think it's just he's tired. He's gone through all of this. He's been playing nonstop. I mean, the guy plays every game pretty much. So I think he's just worn out. I think it's just worn on him. So I actually do hope that if the Pacers can take care of business, and that I was kind of hoping that the Knicks series would at least go 5 or 6 to give the Pacers a couple extra days of rest over the other two. But sometimes that can be risky too because you get rusty. But I think it would have benefit Pascal a lot, especially if we can get to a good game 4 lead where you can just remove him from the game. Because last night, and part of it was because it was his time to come out in the rotation anyway. But there was one point Rick went to a lineup that I don't think I've ever really seen Rick do. Rick went to a Myles Turner, Benedict Mathurin, Aaron Nesmith, Nemhard, and Haliburton lineup. And to be honest with you, it worked. It worked pretty well. So I'm interested to see if Rick continues to experiment with that one, because it was a good lineup. I'm talking about it had that feel of they could really smack you around on the perimeter with anybody. Myles could have hit the 3. Benedict could hit the 3. I mean, Benedict's a better 3-point shooter, I think. I mean, percentage-wise, Pascal shot it pretty well this year, but I'd give Benedict's the better 3-point shooter. So it was an interesting lineup, and I thought it was very interesting that Rick made that adjustment. But the reason why I'm saying this, he took Pascal out. He was tired, and that's usually the time he comes out anyway for that rotation in the 4th to get him one last breather before coming back in around the 3 or 4 minute mark. But Rick was very quick to that's who he was pulling out, and he knew Benedict was going right into that because he'd played so well this game. So yeah, Pacers lacked intensity though. I mean, that was a really long-winded, off the rails kind of thing. It happens a lot of times with me. But the reason why I was saying that is just I feel like the intensity level isn't always there. And I think the way that you can fix some of that is getting Pascal more involved, because while he is not somebody that moves the ball a ton, he is more ISO, take the guy down in the post, make his own one-on-one moves. But he is so good at what he does usually that I feel like if you get him more involved, because he didn't shoot poorly in this game, actually. He was 5 for 8. So he's shooting okay. He's not shooting at the crazy clip he was in the early part of the season and last postseason, but he is still a very good player, all-star level player. So I think getting him involved can help steady this Pacer team at times, because he is a steady rock, much like I think Tyrese is. They're just guys that can steady a team. And I think when the Pacers lack intensity, that's where the ball just needs to go, because he is intensity. I mean, he embodies that. So again, I think that's where the Pacers really, really lacked in that first and second quarters. They just went away from what was working with, getting the ball inside, working it around the perimeter, get your offense moving, and really run at your pace. I mean, they played at the Cavs pace yesterday more so. I mean, they just let the Cavs just get what they want. And with the turnovers, it was just so hard. Like it's so hard to get into a rhythm when you're turning the ball over so much because you lose all ability to try to get in the flow of an offense, especially with the Pacers. The Pacers are turning the ball over. Their offense becomes very difficult because they just aren't doing enough. So I don't know. I think that's definitely something that needs to change for game 3. With that, I think another thing that I mentioned in this is just the fact that they got absolutely destroyed on the offensive boards. The Cavs just they were it was max effort the whole way through. They knew they were the most desperate team. Um, they played like the most desperate team, and ultimately that leads to a discrepancy on the offensive glass. But this is a really good offensive rebounding team. Pacers are one of the worst offensive rebounding teams, so I knew this was going to be a difficult ask for them in the playoffs. But going forward, they're going to rebound better because I mean, even if they get past the Cavs, they've got to play a Knicks team that really did a nice job offensive glass rebounding last season, even without Mitchell Robinson and Cat. I think Mikal Bridges is pretty good offensive rebounder. Josh Hart's an excellent offensive board getter. So if you're looking forward to those series, or even if you're looking at the Celtics with Porzingis, or if you're looking at, sorry, my cat's doing that, and I thought Ghost was coming in or something. But if you're looking at the Pacers, I think the biggest thing that you got to realize is that this is never going to be a good offensive rebounding team, but they can keep guys off the offensive glass if they will just box out. A lot of times, again, like I said, they get too far under the rim. Like that's if you look at it, there's a lot of film that proves they get too far sucked up under the rim, and those balls are landing in those 50-50 areas where a lot of times that offensive team's going to get those because they know where the ball's going off of their shot, or they read it better than a lot of the Pacer guards because the Pacer guards are just not good offensive rebounding guards. I think Aaron Nesmith is probably one of the best. He or Matherin. So it's difficult for you to just go, I'm going to be better at offensive or, on the glass. It's effort. Like it's 100% effort, but it's also understanding where the ball's going off the rim. So box your guys out, find a body. A lot of times what you see with the Pacers, not finding bodies, not finding somebody to box out. And then that just leads to offensive rebounds and second chances. Pacers had 17 turnovers. The Cavs had 16 points off those turnovers. That's a huge discrepancy from what the Pacers get because they weren't really getting the ball. They don't, they're not a team that's going to steal the ball a whole ton or cause a ton of turnovers with their defense. So the Pacers can't really play that turnover battle, and especially with 17, and expect to win many games. So again, like I said, very uncharacteristic of the Pacers to turn the ball over, especially 17 times in 2 games. But it has been a struggle on the road. And I pulled up some stats to go over just how difficult they've had it as far as turnovers on the road in this postseason. This postseason, they played 4 road games. And in those road games against the Bucks and the Cavs, the Pacers have turned it over 15.3 times a game in those 4 games. You can't win games doing that. Like, you got to take care of the basketball better, especially on the road, especially unless the Wolves or the Warriors, I believe, make the finals and the Pacers somehow made the finals. That would be the only time the Pacers would have a home court advantage again. So, I mean, to start the series at least. So, in the Eastern Conference Finals, if they play against Boston or New York, they're not going to have the luxury of starting at home because they've been much better at home taking care of the basketball. It's been a rough go on the road, which it typically is. Like you tend to turn the ball over more on the road. You tend to lose ground on the rebounding battle on the road. You don't shoot 3-pointers as well as the home team typically. So there's some things that, you can kind of shore up other places to really help you try to get an advantage on the road. But when the Pacers are turning over the ball this much, it becomes difficult to come back in these games. And it's a miracle that they came back in this game. They turned the ball over. Andrew Nembhard had 8 turnovers. He was the primary ball handler. So the Cavs, I think one of the biggest takeaways that I have from the Cavs against the Pacers, they did a great job of making Andrew Nembhard the primary ball handler. Andrew's very good at ball handling. He can be the primary point guard at times, but there are still things that he does that don't really allow him to be as effective, obviously, as Tyrese Haliburton. And I think they kind of exposed that last night. I think, he's a good ball handler, but at times he does dribble into trouble. At times he tries to do a little bit too much, I think, as far as dribbling the ball. And that's when he had problems. It's when he was losing it off his leg, bouncing it into traffic. Like there was seriously one time he went through the lane, and I think it was the second half, but he went dribbling through the lane and like had it in his left hand. And he looked like me trying to dribble with my left hand. I can't dribble with my left hand very well, so I just dribble it all over the place, and it losing control, and the ball's way out from my body, and that's just asking for somebody to take it from you. And he almost lost it, like it dribbled, and somebody hit it out of his hand, but he kind of picked it back up, like, oh shoot. So I don't even think it ended up being a turnover, which would have been one more. But Drew's going to be better. Like I really do. I think that was just one of those games that you just have a rough game, like all guys do. And I think he did. He had a very tough game, and he's going to be better. And that's scary because he ended up with 13 assists. So, I mean, he did some crazy things in that fourth quarter, but also was just awful for three. So that's going to change. Ebbs and flows of the postseason. Players are not always going to play their best. You're going to have to pick up your teammates. And Haliburton did. Mathurin did. Neesmith did. So, again, I'm not going to too hard or get too down on Drew because Drew was probably our best player and arguably our best player in that Bucks series. And I give him credit for a lot of reason why we've had success in the postseason, guarding guys like Jalen Brunson, in past series, and Aaron Neesmith, and also getting credit on that. But Drew just makes things so difficult on an offensive player that you take some of the good with the bad. But I thought that he had a really great fourth quarter, but we can forget about the rest of it. Another takeaway, Cavs are gassed. And that comes from just being undermanned. Again, I think cruising through the season, I think guys having some injuries and knocks that they're dealing with. They looked ready to give up at a point, like when they were getting punched enough, they looked like they could give up, but the Pacers only saw that in the fourth quarter. Like they were ready for that all game. It just so happened that the fourth quarter was when that was exposed the most, and the fourth quarter was when the Pacers punched the most because they were punchless for three quarters. So I think they're going to be the same way in game three. I think the Pacers will come out much more focused. They know the Cavs can be dangerous. They almost lost game two, and you lose game two and those guys get extra days of rest. Like I'm expecting at least one of those guys to miss the game on Friday, but I would expect the other two to be back. Don't know which two that would be. If I had to put money on that, I would say that it would be Mobley and DeAndre Hunter, but I don't know that for a fact. I don't know how serious that Garland injury is, but it sounds more serious than what's being let on because, I mean, that's such an important part of someone's foot to try to press off and really get explosive with. And that's what he needs to be successful. And I think it really is bothering him. Pacers need to get the ball out of Donovan Mitchell's hands the best you can. Like, I think he's going to score 30 some points again, but he's going to take 30 some shots. So if you can at least just temper some of that and now don't let him score 48 again, I think they're going to be pretty good hands. I mean, that's kind of what they did with Giannis. They let him get his 35 and that was pretty much it, and shut down the rest of those shooters, which very similar to the Bucks. They got a bunch of shooters around them right now that can shoot. And if they continue to shoot like they did, they're not going to be much of an issue. I think they'll shoot a little bit better, but again, they're going to Gainbridge Fieldhouse and it's not an easy place to win. Pacers are 9-0 with Tyrese Haliburton at home too, by the way. Defense was fine. Again, just not on Donovan Mitchell. Pacers rotations, I think they'll get them through game 3 and 4. And what I mean by that is I think you can keep the rotations at 10 and 11 this series. And I think you'll be fine because you're going back home. Those guys are more comfortable, like a Jarris Walker, Ben Shepherd, Thomas Bryant. Like, I think those guys are playable at home, especially with the 2-0 lead. And I think the way the Pacers are going to come out and what I expect from the Pacers in game 3, I think that's fine. But I do expect at some point, Eastern Conference Finals, if they get there, finals, if we get so lucky, I think that you'll see the rotation shrink a little bit more because I really do. I think there's 8 people you can trust on that team. And on the bench, I think that's Mathurin, McConnell, and Toppin. Pascal has to be more involved. That was a takeaway, but we already talked about that. Injuries for the Cavs up next on my rundown. Not really much to say here except for the fact that the Pacers really, I think the thing for the Cavs, obviously missing those 2 All-Stars and 6 Man of the Year candidates going to hurt. But the Pacers, where it's difficult for the Pacers, and yes, these injuries are also difficult for the Pacers because it's hard to game plan against rotations you don't know what to expect from because you don't know what the practices are like, who they're running together, what rotations they're putting together, what their game plan is for those rotations, how long those rotations will play. So it's easier when you know who the starters are going to be, how to prepare for that. It's a little bit more of a gamble on how do the Pacers handle a lineup that they don't know yet. Like, how do you prepare for them inserting Ty Jerome and Dean Wade into a lineup, right? Like that was kind of a challenge for them. And the Pacers had to try to figure out how to do that. And it took 3 quarters for them to try to figure out how in the world do we stop this now? Because they are still very good basketball players. And it created a challenge that I didn't think the Pacers expected. So that's the issue with injuries is the Pacers also don't really know what to prepare for. And then game 3, let's get into it. What do the Pacers need to do to adjust? Take care of the basketball, right? We talked about that at length. Rebound and box out, again, talked about that at length. The pace, again, I thought favored the Cavs. The Pacers just need to go. And in the fourth quarter, it felt like that. It felt like a race. Like it felt like the Cavs were running around with like a chicken with their head cut off because they were trying to figure out what the Pacers were doing. The Pacers were flying to the rim, getting really aggressive, going towards the rim, getting real physical, playing that full court press. The Pacers just had them in a blender, and that felt like game 1 again. Pacers felt like the Pacers we'd watched all year in that fourth quarter. Scored 36 points. Cavs only scored 21. Pascal, again, got to get him involved early, especially at home. Cavs adjustments, defend Tyrese, similar to game 2. I think you got to keep the ball out of his hands, keep him going left when he does get the ball somehow at the top of the key. Full court pressure, Max Strus, Dean Wade, Sam Merrill, Donovan Mitchell, throw the house at him, see what happens. Just let Andrew Nembhard bring the ball up and try to figure it out from there. Try not to switch as much. The switches are what tend to really kill the Cavs, especially if Mobley plays. So if Mobley and Allen are out there together, it can be very difficult to defend these Pacers. Like I talked about, the worst lineup that the Cavs have had out there when it did present in game 1 was the starting lineup with Sam Merrill, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. So I think the Pacers have an advantage if all their guys are healthy, to be honest with you. Adjusting to the pressure the Pacers are going to bring, especially on Donovan Mitchell, the Pacers are going to come up. Rick Carlisle is going to come up with something to at least try to eliminate some of what Donovan Mitchell is doing. And I think a lot of that involves not allowing him to get in the paint as easily. I think similar to what Giannis did because of how much he's struggling to get lift on his jump shot because of the calf, because he seems worn down. He's just not shooting the ball with any confidence from 3. I think you kind of build that wall like you did against Giannis, where you kind of build that nail or that tee right around the 3-point line, and you kind of shade over to help a little bit, not too much, obviously, because they've got really good shooters. But I think there are moments where the Pacers can somewhat live with some of these other guys taking some shots and seeing what happens, especially at home. Because I don't expect Strus to shoot it as well at on the road, and I really don't expect Merrill or Ty Jerome to figure out what's going on yet. Because Ty Jerome that's another thing we didn't really mention. Ty Jerome was the Pacers' best player. I think that's what they kept joking about on all the shows I was listening to today. He was 1 of 14. He's turning the ball over left and right. He couldn't defend anybody. Tyrese ate him alive in that last possession. So if Ty Jerome's on, not like seek him out, like hunt him down and just keep scoring on him because he's just not a good defender. And he's been awful on the offensive end. Keys to the game for the Indiana Pacers to go up 3-0. Keep chasing their shooters off the arc. Keep them at bay from three-point land. Again, they've shot below 30% in both of these contests. They've only hit 11 in both of those games. And they shoot a ton of threes. I mean, they shoot close to 35, 40 threes a game. So if they're shooting that many and missing that many, we will be fine. We will win the game. Start quick, put them in the blender early. Again, this is usually great at home. They usually, especially in the postseason, start very well. I think the Pacers are actually going to come in with, we have a lot that we need to work on. Let's prove it. So I think this is a very dangerous game for the Cavs because the Pacers pretty much lost that game except for on the scoreboard. I mean, the Pacers really deserve to lose that game. So they'll come in with tons of adjustments. Pacers have to get better in a lot of facets of the game to be better in game 3. And that's where I think the Cavs, up until that fourth quarter, played pretty well. I mean, out of their mind for that unit that really, I mean, you're talking about a team that I think many expected that they were in dire straits, and now they're really in dire straits. But I mean, they had to feel like they were backs against the wall big time with those 3 out. Keep Mitchell under 35. Again, I think you live with some of the others trying to make shots or make plays. So however you can figure out how to guard him and create more of a wall around the paint, I think you're going to be better. Or even maybe getting Myles Turner to shade over on the side in which he's got the ball, and you live with Jaren Allen kind of floating around in the paint just to keep Myles around the rim to try to protect the rim. Rebound and take care of the rock. Talked about that at length, so we won't harp too much on that. But they've got to do it. 5 predictions. I've got the first one being Pascal is more involved and has 20 points. Myles Turner, big night from 3. I think Myles will hit 4. This tends to be one of those games where I feel like Michael Turner, Myles Turner from 3. I feel like a big night's coming. Like, this guy's the franchise. I mean, he's been around forever. He is an Indiana Pacer through and through. He's a lifer, I hope. And I just feel like he's ready. Like, he's ready to just finally give the Cavs the grief in which has been caused by not this version of the Cavs, but the Cavs in general. Myles is due for a big night from 3. Ben Mathurin, 15 points. I actually think he gets more minutes than he's gotten all series in this game coming up. I do think Rick is really starting to buy into how effective he is with more of the starting lineup. And I think you could see him spell Siakam at some point. So that'll be interesting. I'm interested to see what they do there because I do feel like the lack of trust in Jarris Walker right now, I felt like it was waning because Jarris was not good in game 2. I do feel like they'll lean a little bit more into more Mathurin minutes. Cavs score. I'm going to go Cavs score under 100. And I know that's crazy because I feel like the Cavs are going to come out with another huge attempt at punching back at the Pacers because if they lose game 3, like, that's pretty much nail in coffin time. In fact, I can share those numbers because I had those pulled up. For a 2-0 series, 93% of the time almost, teams have advanced. Now, remember this, the Pacers actually were one of those teams that advanced after being down 0-2 in a 7-game series, and that was last year against the Knicks. But in a 7-game series, as they've started to keep track of this stat, there have been 463 playoff series, and the teams that had a 2-0 lead move on and advance 92.7% of the time. It goes up exponentially when you're talking about should they win game 3, because there has never been a team in NBA history that has come all the way back from a 3-0 deficit to win a 7-game series. There have been teams that have forced a 7th game, but there has never been a team that has won when trailing 3-0. So the Pacers, if they win game 3, they're pretty much writing the death sentence for this year's Cleveland Cavaliers and the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. And that'll do it. Oh, wait. I got to give my last prediction. Duh. I predict that the Pacers will go up 3-0 and deliver what could be the final blow to a Cavs team that had a tremendous season and unfortunately marred by injuries. And I think a lot of the conversation will be around, this is what's awful, because this is the narrative that's going around right now in Cavs land, and ESPN and Fox and anybody that's writing about the NBA. The narrative around this Cavs team is Darius Garland ever going to be healthy enough to complete a season with these Cavs, because he's not done so yet? And are they mentally tough enough to be able to replicate what they did this year, next year? That's tough. Like, three of their best players got injured. And I get it. Darius Garland has had his very fair share of injuries, and it's just unfortunate. You hate to see a guy injured, but I also don't like when these talking heads and ESPN and national writers, like, it's clickbait, it's engagement, like they get engagement from it. And I get it. Like, I mean, these were Cavs podcasts I was listening to, like 3 of them, who questioned whether or not Darius Garland was actually serious. Because I guess Markieff Morris, I think it was, or Marcus Morris, it's one of the twins. I guess he was on this team last year, I think it was. And Jared Allen missed I think, all of the playoffs or most of the playoffs. And then somebody else, I think it was Garland or somebody else, got hurt in a series. And one of the Morris twins said that after he had obviously moved on from the team, said that he was shocked that Evan Mobley didn't try to play. It wasn't Jared Allen. Was it Jared Allen? Is Jared Allen or Mobley? I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Mobley. I don't know. No, it's Jared Allen. I have no idea. It's late. I can't remember, but it was one of the 2 bigs. And basically, Marcus Morris said he should have played, and he knew he should have played. He just wasn't tough enough to do it. I was like, that's scathing. To question somebody's integrity like that, and will and ability and health, like, that's a gutsy thing. But all the Cavs podcasts were talking about it today. It's like, this is crazy. Like, I would never question a person's injury. Like, if Tyrese said, I can't play in game 3 because that sprained wrist, I'm like, well, can't play. It's probably a good thing because he's hurt. I would never question somebody sitting out a game like that, because I know I've played, and I'm like, a competitor who's been there all season, who's competed all season, isn't just going to be like, you know what, I don't want to play today. That doesn't make any sense. Like, they've all played plus 60, plus 70 games this year. Like, why would they all of a sudden be like, no, I'm good? So I don't know. Cavs podcasts are wild. Like, we never really got to see Cavs fans too much because they've kind of been irrelevant when the Pacers are relevant. And then when the Pacers are relevant, the Cavs aren't really relevant, or they're meeting in the first round. And this was before X and all this beef on, Pacers Twitter. Like, Pacers X is pretty much just Bucks fans tweeting at us and Knicks fans tweeting at us and everybody tweeting at Haliburton that he's overrated. But we don't really deal with a whole lot of Cavs fans, which they've been pretty kind to us, more so than the Knicks and Bucks fans. Like, Bucks fans are horrible to us, which, there's some Pacer fans that are kind of questionable towards Bucks fans, but I get it. There's a rivalry there. But yeah, I mean, this has been a really fun series, at least for the Pacers. And one last thing, Kenny Atkinson. Pacer fans, if you want to not listen to Kenny Atkinson, he does not embody anything that I think this team really does stand for, because all these guys are great in their press conferences. Like Strus, even though he was just devastated yesterday, short and to the point, but like said some good things about the Pacers. Same thing with with Donovan Mitchell, like to tell the fans, like, hey, knock that overrated crap off. Like, this is a really good player. I respect this guy. He's one of a good friend of mine. Like, knock it off. Like, we don't need that in this game. We don't like we're not sitting there in Bankers or in Gainbridge. Wow, Banker's Life. In Gainbridge and telling Donovan Mitchell he's overrated. I mean, obviously he's not, but you get the point. Like, we're not, it's just not us. Like that's just not something we do. We'll give Giannis a hard time because he takes forever to shoot free throws. But again, the overrated chance, it's never really been a big thing for me just because, especially with Tyrese, like you're just fueling him. You're not really bothering him. You're actually adding more fuel to the fire. And he'll just continue to do things to you. And there's nothing you can do about it. So might as well knock it off. And that's what Donovan was like. But I mean, Kenny Atkinson, man, what a baby. I'm sorry, but like he griped that we were grabbing and holding them in the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, Donovan Mitchell shoots like 21 free throws. So I don't want to hear the grabbing and holding and we weren't getting a fair whistle. You got a fair whistle. Go look at the fouls, and the fouls and free throw shooting and all that stuff. So again, if you made it this far in the podcast, I really do appreciate it. It's really late. I'm going to jump off of here, but I thought I would get on here and record a Game 3 preview. Let me know in the comments below, what are you thinking for Game 3? Are the Pacers going to pull this out? Will they give that almost basically, are they giving the Cavs their nail and their coffin and getting ready to hammer it together? Because I feel like the Pacers are right on the verge of just completely knocking this Cavs team out. They deliver a Game 3 win and this Cavs team's done. It's what history has said. It's what, as a sports fan, could you imagine the Cavs winning 4 games in a row? I can't imagine it. So yes, the series is not over until it's over, until the Pacers final whistle, or that final whistle when the Pacers win Game 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever, or, crazy things happen. But if the Cavs somehow come back and win Game 7, then I'll pat you on the back or something, but I don't know. But it's over. I think the Pacers win Game 3. I think they do win Game 3. Thank you for listening this far. If you have, like us on YouTube, we're on YouTube. So if you want to see the rundown and images and the beautiful video, you can head over to YouTube, subscribe, like, comment. It helps people find us. Also, anywhere we can get podcasts, that's where you can find us at the Pacer Fever Show. We're on socials at the Pacers Fever Show. We're tweeting during the games. We're going to be talking about Indiana Fever because their season starts soon. But I really appreciate the support so far. It's been great. We've gotten a lot of good interactions and some really good engagement and listens. So looking forward to continuing this, and hopefully the Pacers do continue their playoff run through these 2025 NBA playoffs. They're looking good, guys. I mean, it's the most excited I've ever been for the Pacers. So really looking forward to seeing what they do. Thank you again for listening, and have a good night or good morning whenever you're listening to this. And let's go grab Game 3.